And we are back and we are back. Thank you for watching today. Go ahead and hit that thumbs up if you want to see Mounk Tonk get out of prison, y'all. Today we are going to talk about how Mounk Tonk may be able to get out of prison, even though Judge Whitaker, she has given him 5 years on probation revocation. Now, if you've been watching, you know Mounk Tonk, he was called to testify in the YSL trial. This was after he had given a series of statements that he was supposed to testify to. The prosecution was not happy with the way he testified, and they actually called him up for a hearing to revoke his probation. Judge Whitaker, she agreed, and she revoked 5 years of his 30-year sentence. So Mounk Tonk is currently in prison, y'all. Now, a lot of us, we saw Young Thug, we saw him get out of prison recently. Well, get out of jail, get out of possibly going to prison. He was being held in jail for what, over 2 years. And a lot of us, we felt really good because the prosecution had been, let's say, less than ethical in many of our eyes. But then we started thinking about Mounk Tonk. Like, what about Mounk Tonk? Poor little Mounk Tonk. I mean, he is in prison right now. And while we might be happy to see other people go free after this unjust prosecution, what's going to happen to Mounk Tonk, y'all? So I have come up with 6 different ways that Mounk Tonk may be able to get out of prison. Y'all bear with me. We're going to go through all 6 and let's go ahead and get started. The first one is going to be a motion to reconsider his probation revocation. Now, the basis for this is Mounk Tonk's 5-year sentence is substantially harsher than the sentences received by other people. If you remember, Mr. Nichols, he had an M charge on him and he had that dropped in a plea deal. He wound up pleading guilty to a RICO charge based on a couple of drug convictions, and he got a 7-year sentence. So one thing Mounk Tonk may be able to do is bring up Mr. Nichols and Mr. Huey, who got a 9-year sentence. He was facing 3 life sentences plus 100 years, and Mr. Huey got that knocked down to just 9 years in prison. So Mr. Mounk Tonk, what he may be able to do is argue, listen, I have been sentenced unfairly. It's not in accordance with what I did wrong when you compare it to some of my co-defendants and what they were sentenced to in these plea deals. So he may be able to highlight that he was cooperative, highlight that he came to court every day, that he testified, and that he thought he was testifying in accordance with his agreement, and see if he can get a reduction or maybe even get out of trouble altogether by filing a motion to reconsider the probation revocation. Now, the second thing Mounk Tonk may be able to do is what we all wondered initially. We thought, can he appeal this judgment by Judge Whitaker, putting him in prison for 5 years? Yes, he can appeal. His grounds for appeal. Now, before we get into that, appeal, that can take time, right? So you have to wonder, how long would the appeal take? He has 5 years. I mean, if you're going to be in appeal for 2 or 3 years, that might not seem like such a good thing, considering in Georgia, you only have to serve a certain percentage of your time. So either way, Mounk Tonk may be out of prison in the next 2 to 3 years anyway. So if your appeal is going to take that long, this might not be the best road, but let's just talk about it anyway. So his grounds for appeal would be Mounk Tonk would be arguing that the 5-year probation revocation constitutes an abuse of judicial discretion, especially again when viewed in comparison with what other defendants have been sentenced to based on their crimes. Now remember, Mounk Tonk's crime, his initial crimes were the RICO and gun charges, but he got probation for that. Now the reason he's revoked was his testimony. So he would have to argue that, listen, I was sentenced for my testimony, I was revoked for my testimony, and this is wildly out of sorts when you compare it to some of the other sentences that my co-defendants received. Now, what he's essentially going to be arguing are sentencing disparities between him and his co-defendants. So that is another way, that's way number 2, that Mounk Tonk may be able to get out of prison with an appeal, but this could take a little bit longer. Now, way number 3 that Mounk may be able to get out of prison is another thing that we all thought when we saw Mr. Derek Wright representing Mounk, even during the trial, even before the hearing, the probation revocation hearing. We all thought, at least I did, maybe Mounk, if something comes up, and something has come up now, right? He's in prison now. He may have to pull that ineffective assistance of counsel card, y'all. So what Mounk could do is he could argue that Mr. Wright gave him ineffective assistance. So he might even want to combine some of these, right? Even I would imagine even if he does appeal, this might come up as well. So he may have to essentially try to throw Mr. Wright under the bus and say, listen, Mr. Wright, he did not advise me correctly. During my plea negotiations, he didn't advise me correctly. You can look at the transcript of the trial and you can see where Mr. Wright admits to having missed. He just missed very, very important parts of what was going on. Mr. Wright says, I don't know, I just missed it, right? And then also when we were at my sentencing hearing, Mr. Wright also did not speak up and accept some of the blame that he accepted during the trial, right? So this is another angle where Mounk may be able to get some leeway. Again, this could maybe even work in conjunction with an appeal, but it could also perhaps work on its own. So file for post-conviction relief, claiming ineffective assistance of counsel. That's number 3. Now, number 4 is a petition for sentence modification or reduction. This might not get Mounk out of prison right away, but depending on the amount of reduction he can get, he'll get out a lot faster. So there are some real serious challenges with this, which, you know, let's be honest, judges, they give you the 5. You're not going to normally turn around and say, oh, I shouldn't have given you the 5. Let me give you 3. My bad. We've seen this with Judge Whitaker. She does not like going back on her rulings, but you do have this disparity. So Mounk can use this disparity, at least attempt to use this disparity between his sentence and what he actually did to deserve it, and the sentence of some of his co-defendants and what they did, and say, listen, if you're not going to let me out right away, can we knock this down? Can we take half off of it? Maybe I deserve a year. Maybe I deserve 18 months, depending on whether or not he's able to convince a judge of that. He may be able to have his sentence reduced. And also, he could also ask for alternative sentence. Maybe he says, give me some more probation. Let me do community service, or some of these alternatives that some of these more creative judges may allow him to do. So petition for sentence modification or reduction is another way that Mounk could get out of prison. If not right away, maybe faster than the 5 years that he's been sentenced so far. The 5th way that Mounk could possibly get out of prison is asking for clemency or commutation of sentence. Now, we getting kind of into Hail Mary territory here now, y'all. It's possible, though. People do get clemency, and we see that Thug, he actually had part of his sentence commuted to time served. So Whitaker did that for him. So it's not like Whitaker won't do it. We just saw her do that recently for Thug. So again, he could petition for clemency or commutation of his sentence to, let's say, to time served. Okay, I've been in for 30 days. I learned my lesson. I'm sorry. But again, can y'all let me free? So this is another way that Mounk could try to get out of prison right away, or a lot faster than he otherwise would have gotten out. It might be a bit of a Hail Mary, but it's still a possibility. And the final way Mounk could probably get out of prison a lot faster, if not immediately, this is the Hail Mary of all Hail Marys. And I say that because I'm pretty sure he's not going to want to do this, but we need to talk about it because we're trying to explore all of the avenues. He could possibly decide he wants to cooperate further. Now, again, I know people don't think he should cooperate at all. We're not talking about what he should and shouldn't do. We're talking about what his options are. He could, if he has information or additional cooperation that he could provide to the prosecution, Mounk could say, hey, okay, I'm ready to play ball, people. I just need to get up out this prison. I know this, I know that. Again, not talking about the shoulds and shouldn'ts. We're just talking about what's open to him. So if he has additional information or any way that he could cooperate further, the prosecution may be willing to go back to the negotiating table with him. Hopefully for Mounk Tonk, with a lawyer who's going to look over all and cross all the T's and dot all the I's. So those are 6 ways, y'all, that Mounk Tonk may be able to get out of prison, if not immediately, a lot faster than the 5 years he's been sentenced. Drop a comment. Let me know. How do you feel about Mounk Tonk being in prison over his testimony, right, for 5 years, and then seeing some of the other guys who most of us felt good that they got those favorable deals. But then when you compare it to Mounk Tonk, seems like Mounk Tonk got the raw deal, if you know what I mean. Anyway, thank you for watching. Don't forget to comment, like, and subscribe, and I'll see you in the next one.